The Taliban claims that it's been hunting down Afghans, picking them off, essentially. Afghans who were loyal to British forces after their personal details, were leaked in a catastrophic data breach by the Ministry of Defence, and it happened 3 years ago.
Well, under the previous Conservative government, an unprecedented super injunction ensured the data breach was kept secret, but now that's been lifted and the true cost of the mistake has been exposed. Well, we can speak now to Defence Secretary John Healey. Good to speak to you this morning.
Morning.
Of course, you were Shadow Defence Secretary when this all happened. I understand that you found out about the data breach in December 2023. At that point, who could you talk to about it? Could you talk to Keir Starmer? And what were your thoughts on it? Because the impression has been given is that you felt uncomfortable about it.
I certainly did. I was shocked when I was briefed just before Christmas in 2023. I was also presented with a brown envelope with the super injunction, and so I couldn't talk to anyone. So my wife found out about this yesterday when I made the statement in the House of Commons. But what really disturbed me was that we'd got an unprecedented super injunction. It was preventing the disclosure of a massive data breach, and it covered also the previous government setting up a secret relocation and resettlement route for Afghans into this country. And I think the British people deserve answers now, and I'm pleased that we've been able to take a fresh look at the risks that people face in Afghanistan. I've been able to take the judgment now that we will disclose the data breach. We'll close this special scheme, which is now closed with immediate effect. And that also has let the judge lift the super injunction so that we now know we can bring in 9,500 fewer Afghanistans into this country.
Yep. Okay.
We'll save the taxpayer 1.2 billion pounds. And of course, people have the transparency now to be able to put people like me on the spot.
Okay, so that's your position. So 850 million, though, has already been spent. Is that part of the black hole that you uncovered? And when did the Prime Minister find out? And why has it taken so long to lift it?
No, around 400 million has so far been spent on this scheme that was set up under the previous government.
So another 400 million is going to have to be spent, is it? Because I think people are thinking, well, first thought, of course, the poor souls whose lives have been put at risk that were loyal to the British forces. Can you guarantee that they are safe? And then after that, what the heck? Why are we spending all this money?
So those Afghans that fought alongside our forces that helped them do their very difficult job in Afghanistan are eligible through a different scheme, let's call it the ARAP scheme, that's the acronym. And that scheme has brought other Afghans in. The names on this data set were not eligible for ARAP.
We're talking about this data leak. We're talking about this data leak. Can you guarantee that those people have not come to harm because of the data leak? And how do you know they're safe now? Let's break down the questions.
There is no guarantee. There's no guarantee or certainties. There's no judgments are without risk. But this independent expert that I commissioned to do an updated report of the circumstances in Afghanistan nearly 4 years after the Taliban took over, and in particular to look at the risk linked to simply being a name on this data set, he concluded it's highly unlikely that simply being on the data set increases the risk of being targeted.
All right.
That's a judgment that he came to, and it's on the basis of that, as well as taking into account concerns about cost to the taxpayer, the proportionality of this scheme that had been put in place by previous ministers, and this lack of parliamentary accountability and freedom of the press to report.
Yes.
All those were factors that led me to decide to disclose the data breach, end the scheme, and allow the judge to lift the super injunction.
Well, Minister, I want to drill down with 2 or 3 questions into this whole question of the super injunction. Given that the data had already been breached and leaked and it had been out there for a very long time and the Taliban had had plenty of time to have access to it, what was the reason, in your honest opinion, for this unprecedented super injunction? It was stated that it was to protect Afghan lives. I put it to you that it wasn't. It was to protect the blushes, to save the blushes of the British government, not to reveal this enormous screw-up. That was the reason for the super injunction, wasn't it?
Well, one of the things as a result of the decisions I've made and the report I made to Parliament is that those sort of questions can now be put to the ministers that made those decisions at the time. And I wasn't in the room, didn't have access to the papers, but I suspect that they took the judgment that release or knowledge of the data set may increase the risk that those individuals could be targeted if the Taliban get hold of that data set. We're now a number of years on. We've had a fresh assessment of the situation in Afghanistan, as well as the risks about this specific data set. It's helped the judge make a different decision. It's helped me make a different decision.
Right.
And most importantly, it's now started to create the circumstances in which the British people can get answers.
Okay.
We'll bring fewer Afghans in, we'll cut the costs to the taxpayer, and we've now got greater transparency.
Well, now the big one. And I think the way you answer this will actually be quite revealing. Are there any other major super injunctions which the government has sought and which still apply? If there aren't, then you can say that there aren't. If there are, then you won't be able to answer the question. But the question stands, are there any other super injunctions that this government or a government in recent times has asked for and had applied?
There are no other super injunctions that I know of that are in place. That's not to say that they may not be. It's just that I have no knowledge and I've not been read into them.
OK. All right, let's move on a stage then. Do you feel that in future any government would be far more cautious about applying for a super injunction of this kind? Because it's Orwellian, isn't it? It's dystopian.
I would always be deeply, deeply cautious or concerned about applying for a court order like this. But to be fair to the ministers at the time, they applied for an injunction. It is the court and the judge that decides and did decide about a super injunction. And the important thing for me was to be able to create the grounds to get to grips with the problem that we inherited. You know, this huge undisclosed data breach a year ago when we came into government, this secret resettlement scheme that had been in operation under the previous government and covering everything, the secrecy of a super injunction. That was deeply concerning to me. No public knowledge, no press reporting, no parliamentary accountability.
Yeah.
All of that starts now.
OK. And what about the individual who's still working in government that caused the data leak? Should they, and I know not in the same area, but should they keep their job? And is there a bit of you that wishes the Labour government had never gone into Afghanistan in the first place?
Well, I'm not going to give you a snap judgment on decisions that would have been matters for ministers at the time. But for me, this was much bigger than the actions of one individual. And for me, this was a matter of trying to sort out a situation that we found when we came into government that we had to get to grips of. And as a result of those decisions that we've taken, it means that we can cut the cost to the taxpayer, we can reduce the number of Afghans that will come into this country.
But you don't think that
very important to me as an MP of nearly 30 years standing, we can restore now the proper role of Parliament to hold people like me in government to account.
But you don't think that the person who pressed the send button and thus sent the most expensive email in history, you don't think that they deserve to be called to public account?
Well, accountability can now start to take place and may happen in due course. And it can happen because you can cross-examine ministers like me and ministers who took the decisions at the time, and Parliament can do the same. And I'm looking forward to the fact that I think Parliament can do a good job and inquiry into this, and it's needed. I know that they'll call me. I expect them to call my predecessors, Grant Shapps, who oversaw the design, the agreement, the extension and the establishment of this secret relocation scheme. And they'll call Ben Wallace, I'm sure, who made the decision to apply for the injunction in the first place.
Right. Defence Secretary John Healey, always good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed for joining us live this morning.
Thanks very much.